set?
All set. Okay, we got. Let's carry on.
Perfect. So in the studio today, we have got with us Sarad Davenport, the director of City of Promise, which I know we've talked about on Soundboard, and we were hoping to get on last month, but we definitely got on this month, and we're very glad to have him. Sarad, are you there?
I'm here.
Perfect. Oops, there we go. Oh well. Seems the headphones that I was about to use are actually not functioning, so makes that very simple. Sarad, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit, just give us a quick summary of City of Promise, of the mission of City of Promise, and then I want to ask you about, because you grew up here and you're also, City of Promise is focused back on, Star Hill, West Haven, and 10th and Page. I was hoping to sort of connect the dots with you on what got you inspired to come and be a part of the program.
So what we are doing is building a cradle to college and career pathway for young people who live in the neighborhoods that you mentioned. I'm passionate about it because I grew up here in Charlottesville and had an opportunity to experience some things that not all of my peers did, but it didn't mean that they were any less bright than I were. They were those that were far brighter than I, but just didn't have the experiences. So, my hope is that we can bring more experiences to the young people and the families in the community so that we can change some outcomes and help people to be their best and to do their best. I came here by way of Washington, D.C. I was working in Washington, D.C. doing much of the same work, specifically in the educational realm with the Knowledge is Power program in Southeast Washington, D.C. And I was doing fine there, doing great, really enjoying myself being an educator. But this opportunity came back at home, and that's why I'm passionate about it, is because it was home. Had it not been home, I would probably still be in D.C., but I care about this community, and I care about the young people, and I just want to see them do well.
Sarad, I think for you, I know because you grew up here, the experiences you're talking about, the things you've seen are probably to you almost second nature because you've seen them. But for some of us, like myself, who only just come into Charlottesville and really don't know much still about the history or the culture or the environment, can you just give me some examples or some experiences of what people in West Haven and Star Hill, what the things they have to deal with that maybe people in other parts of Charlottesville don't, or other parts of the country don't have to worry about, that are a problem?
Okay, so Charlottesville is what people know is a very resource-rich area, and often is awarded the #1 place to live, not only in Virginia but in America, right? But that is not necessarily the case for everybody, especially in Charlottesville. So there are like these pockets that are under-resourced, and they don't have the things that regular kids need to make sure that they do well in school and they have a safe community. So what our job is to do is to make sure that those resources that are available and that we know affect outcomes are available in these communities also. So we want to make sure that these kids have supportive adults and programming and things of that nature to make sure that they have the same opportunities and chances as any other kid would in Charlottesville, and that Charlottesville kind of lives more up to its ideal of being the best place to live in America, so that all kids in Charlottesville can have the opportunity to do well.
Sarad, I'm going to ask probably another obvious question to you, but just to make it explicit, you give a kid those opportunities, those things that you're saying every child, every student needs to have. What sort of difference does that make in it? Like, how much of a difference does that make in a student's life when they have those resources you're talking about?
It makes a big difference when we look at their education as comprehensive. When we look at it, we make sure that every kid has a high quality teacher, no matter what neighborhood they come from, that they have a high quality education. When we make sure that they have positive youth development, when we make sure that they have extracurricular activities that reinforce the things that they're learning in school and also increase their capacity to do other things, in school academically. When we do those things, when we put positive people in their environment, then we know that changes outcomes. When we change the environment so that it is a safe place, where kids don't have to worry about being safe and they can have fun things to do, then they can focus more on the important things, and they can do better overall. And that's a big aim of what we're trying to do. We're really trying to transform the entire community of Charlottesville to make sure that we don't forget about those kids who are in these under-resourced communities, and make sure that these opportunities are provided so that they can be successful also.
Sarad, you mentioned at the very beginning of going from cradle to college and career, and can you tell me why is it important to go the long-term scope? We look at other programs, other initiatives to help students, to help kids, and a lot of them are fairly short-term. Why is it important to really be there over the long term? Why does that make a difference?
Well, I think if you work with a kid, wherever they fall in the spectrum, but if you have a long-term scope, then you can develop a plan for them, right? You can't. Well, let me take that back. You can't develop a plan for them, but you could work with them to develop a plan for themselves and their families, and they can execute that plan over the long range. And you can see how interventions, academic or community supports, really make a difference over the long term. And I think that's what kids need, especially in a university town. Sometimes it's tough. Kids get people that come in and out of their lives all the time, right? But when they have some consistency, and they have an organization that's going to be supportive of them through the long haul, and they have confidence that this organization is going to be there, and these people are going to be there to see them through these different phases of their educational career in their life, then people are really going to, I think, buy into that. They know that you're going to be there for the long term, and people don't buy in when they know that you're not necessarily going to be there for the long term. You're not necessarily in it for the long haul. So I think investment is big when people know that you're invested in them, and you're willing to see it through with them.
One of the other things that I found really striking, because we talked back in February, I think, many months ago now. But even then, and then also sort of going back and looking at City of Promise and the website, and making sure seeing where everything was at. One of the things that really struck me was this attention, or this emphasis on planning, on listening and gathering information from the community to figure out what they want, as opposed to coming in with your idea of how things should be done, and going through executing a plan from start to finish without really talking to the community first. You're sort of taking the opposite approach, finding out first what the community wants, and then how do you get that solution?
Right. So typically people come in, and I won't say people, but oftentimes programs come in and they try to implement something or feel like they're going to fix something in the community, but they haven't necessarily sat down and listened to the people in the community. And our approach this time is to really listen and talk less, and figure out, some of the things that is important to the community, and how people really feel that change can happen. What are their ideas? I'll give you a perfect example. We had a young man whose mother, it was his grandmother, and she was taking him to karate. All right, it was getting expensive, and transportation was an issue. And she point blank asked me, could I pay for him to go and take him also? And I was like, probably not. But what I did do was I called the instructor and seen if the instructor would come to the community to do karate, right? So it's not, the ideas don't come from me necessarily, or they don't come from us necessarily, but we partner together to make sure that the things that the community feels is important as far as resources are getting to the community, and we're in the business of tracking them to make sure that they do produce outcomes, but we want to be in the needs. The needs come from what the community feels the needs are, and we did a comprehensive needs assessment, which Youth-Nex from UVA really helped us with. And part of that was to really see what the community felt like was important to changing outcomes.
And has that been released yet? Can you tell us at all some of those big points?
Within the next couple of weeks.
Perfect. So
I'll tell you what we did do first, and this is maybe a little bit unprecedented, maybe not, but we decided to release it to the neighbors first. So we went door to door, and every neighbor that participated in these assessment survey was given the opportunity to look at the analysis in a one-on-one meeting, and a large number of them took the opportunity. They either took the analysis and read it themselves, or they sat down with a research assistant and a neighbor and looked at it. So it was the way we wanted to approach it was we wanted to be respectful of the community because of the information that they gave, and give them the opportunity to see it first before we released it to the public.
In those one-on-one conversations, I'm curious if there was any feedback. Did you present the information? Was there feedback from the community saying, well, this seems a little bit off, or we really want more emphasis on X instead of Y?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there were a few instances. I read some of the logs, and by and large, people agree. These are some things that we need to do. Some of it's like we already know what works for kids, and to some extent, but you need evidence to back it up, and you need to really listen to the community that you're working with, right? Some things we know what really helps kids develop well and families develop well, but there was some questions about, is it representative of all of the different neighborhoods within the footprint, right? Because the neighborhood, that whole City of Promise, what we call footprint, demographically has changed over some time. So we have to be considerate of the whole community and those demographic changes. So I would say by and large people did agree, but there were some questions about some nuance in some of the findings. But I mean, I think that's par for the course.
Sarad, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you, and I'm sorry that our interview isn't longer, but I think we can find an excuse to get you back on soundboard and talk maybe about some of the points a little more in detail in the future. I'm curious, though, just looking forward, what's the next step for City of Promise? You've got this assessment, where do you go from here?
Right, so the next step is implementation. So we need to take this comprehensive needs assessment, segmentation analysis, and we've already designed a plan from that, and we've designated some priorities, and we will begin to deliver some programming to address some of the needs, right? And I can just tell you, I don't feel uncomfortable telling you that some areas that we're going to have to really focus on are middle school, and not just because kids in this area of the community are doing bad in middle school. Just middle school is tough for kids in general, no matter where you're from, right? And it turns out that we need to put some emphasis there. Early childhood, if we're looking at the whole spectrum of a child's education and pathway, then we need to really look at that. And also, we need to work more closely with our high school males. I have some high school males with me today, and there's going to be an emphasis on paying attention to some of their needs and really listening to them. So those are some of the areas that we're going to be focusing on.
Sarad, for people who are listening to this and maybe hearing about it for the first time, or maybe have forgotten about it and want to go back and learn more, where can they do so?
Well, you can go to cityofpromise.org or .com. You can find us on Facebook. We got a Twitter. We're on Twitter now. So we even have a YouTube channel. So you can find us on YouTube, City of Promise on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and cityofpromise.org or .com.
Perfect. Sarad Davenport, the Director of the City of Promise, thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you, sir.